Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon if you are watching from the US or in Europe, or good evening if you are watching from Cameroon. Welcome to another edition of the Lambom Show. Today is Saturday, September 10th, 2022, and we are once again on African Soccer Vibes with veteran sports journalist Fon Echekiye. We missed out last weekend because I was at the National Veterans Tournament. I was trying to get some footage for that, and the connection were not good. And I've not been feeling well all week. But thank God we are here. We are able to at least come on today, and I'm very grateful to Fon. I'm very grateful to Fon. We are back on set today. How are you, Fon?
Well, I'm doing great. Besides the behind the curtains matter that you yourself know very much about and should not be shared with our viewers out there.
That's meant for the inner chamber.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So a lot has happened over the last. I mean, we have not been on air for 2 weeks. So, but I think a lot has happened, and we want to kick off with where we are supposed to. World Cup preparations. First of all, there was a list that was put out. The coach for the Indomitable Lions put out a list for the friendly encounter that's coming up. I think in 2 weeks, and that raised a lot of dust because there were a couple of players that were missing on the team. But we want to start there and talk about other teams and how they are preparing. Take it up.
Well, we were talking about the teams, the African teams preparing for the World Cup finals. You know, there is a famous saying that if you want to go very, very far in a journey that you embark on, you must get yourself well prepared for that journey. So the African teams are doing just that ahead of the World Cup finals. And you said 2 weeks ago, we gave you the program already of how they were looking forward to those games and how they are preparing for the various challenges. And what was of so much interest was the question that was raised by the choice of the Cameroonian sparring partners for the competition, for the friendly matches that will be taking place during the FIFA window. And the question was being asked whether there was any wisdom in having to choose to play against Uzbekistan and the South Korea. And I told you that 2 weeks ago, in order not to go back to the same things that we've fed the viewership with out there and who keep on going back and playing the tapes of the former programs, we just say that I remarked that Cameroon sparring partner in South Korea was worth going for, simply because they constitute a formidable challenge for Cameroon. Cameroon has never ever defeated South Korea ever since this war started. In fact, South Korea has defeated Cameroon, I think, 4 times, and Cameroon's managed 2 draws. So they really stand up as a formidable opponent for the Cameroon side as they look forward to tackling the opponents of the World Cup in 2022. That will be in Qatar. But as far as the other teams are concerned, they too have been looking for the sparring partners to reward the class. But you know, Lambert, I raised the issue that I don't see so much wisdom in this whole thing of arguing that you want to get sparring partners that play the same kind of football like the teams you're going to be playing with at the World Cup. I asked the question the last time. I think you just smiled and said nothing after that. And the question I was asking is, when you would have prepared for those teams that you're tackling in the first round, what happens after that? At the end of the competition, at the end of the first round, you come back home. So what about the teams that are going to be meeting at the 8 finals, the quarterfinals, and the semifinals? Where do you get the sparring partners from before those competitions? So, and I was submitting that I thought that it made a lot of sense to only go out for those teams that are better placed than you in the FIFA monthly rankings. That way, you would have been able to compare your skills with teams that are worth the salt. And so I still stand by that, and that has not been challenged up to now. So the African teams who are aiming for those teams that play the same kind of football, first round opponents, that could be, it could be a trap that you are setting for your own self. Because when you would have qualified from that group to play in the 8 finals, how do you get to know those teams that you're going to play against? Or you would be arguing that when the competition begins, you can size up the teams and determine which which one has what kinds of potentials and which ones you can stand up to in the course of the competition. So the African teams, they've chosen the teams that they want to have as the sparring partners, and that we're looking forward to it. But now, concerning the Cameroon team, a lot of dust was raised when the head coach of the Cameroon national team, Rigobert Song Bahana, published the list of more than 30 players who were supposed to take part in the test matches during the FIFA window. And he dropped two key names from this list. He dropped Zambo Anguissa and also dropped Michael Ngadu. And the question we're being asked is, what has motivated the choice and decision of the head coach of Cameroon to drop those players? Now, luckily for him, a lot of doors have been raised by that move by the coach, that there is a press briefing being slated for the FECAFOOT headquarters in Yaoundé on Monday, where Rigobert Song Bahana is going to explain to the Cameroonian public what guided his choice of players that are going for the World Cup competitions. There's been a lot of talk around that, and many are suggesting that the president of the federation is trying to settle scores with some players. But I don't think that for now that is still submissions, utterances that are coming from the rumor mill. We're going to know on Monday just what guided the choice of Rigobert Song Bahana for the players, and of course to explain how the Napoli strongman Zambo Anguissa is out of the list, and why Michael Ngadi, for example, too, is out of the list. So expect to have convincing answers to justify why that move by the head coach of the Cameroon national team. But that notwithstanding, the players who were streamlined to take part in the FIFA window test matches are generally the same players that you all know, the same players who have been taking part, who took part in the Africa Cup of Nations, the same players that have always been called up during the countdown to that competition. So not very much ado about that, but just that they're waiting for the explanation and justification of the choices made by Rigobert Song Bahana.
So one of the things I found very curious was, I think there are about 14 players that were selected just as attackers. The emphasis was on the attack machinery, and I found, I mean, in a certain sense, it seems as if it's been the Achilles heels of the team, and maybe at this point he's trying to make sure that he has enough in his arsenal so that he's able to select the best. But I think in a certain sense too, it doesn't make sense to have 14 attackers coming to prepare for, to play in 2 games. That's a stretch. And the modern game of soccer is at least in the midfield. That's where most people will want to. And I don't see the fortification in the midfield. But what is your assessment of that outlook that he's trying to give?
I wouldn't say anything any different from what you are saying out there, Lambert. I raised the same questions too. You're taking 14 attackers there. What are you thinking about the defenders and the midfield? And what do you think about the goalkeeping department? And if you look at just what you submitted already, it is known in modern football that who wins the battle at midfield wins the game. Everything being equal, that is. So if you want to win, you lay emphasis on the midfield. That you go instead to the midfield and you take away one that's being regarded as the kingpin of the team. So we are still till then that all of these questions that you are raising there are questions that definitely the press men are going to be asking Rigobert Song Bahana on Monday. Let him explain to us exactly what is that. He says that it's when you know you're in danger that you're no longer in danger, but when you don't know that you're in danger, that's when you are really in danger and stuff like that. I don't know whether wherever I got that metaphor from is going to help him in his choice of the players that he takes to the World Cup in 2022. So therefore, each and every one of us here, we're looking forward closely and putting our ears to the ground to get his explanations as to why he did or what he did. But one thing that we must also not lose sight of is that if he came out of the blues and was able to qualify Cameroon for the World Cup in that binary confrontation, well, it was the last-ditch effort to qualify Cameroon for the World Cup, whereas the job had been done by Conceição, who was there, who took the team all the way right up to that crucial moment of the qualifiers. But if he's been able to spring out a surprise and take Cameroon to qualify for the World Cup, then maybe himself and the president of the Cameroon Football Federation, Samuel Eto, who says that Cameroon will be winning the World Cup in Qatar, they probably have things up their sleeves. But you will start making us and assuring the public with the kinds of explanations you're going to give me to us on Monday, because your question, one of just how he put together the molar combinations of the human resources in the game, in the various departments, is definitely going to be a cause of concern. But we also remember that even in the goalkeeping department, you know, Andre Onana is a good goalkeeper, no doubt. But we thought that the competition at the goal would have been much more keen if they brought down along Fabrice Ondua and maybe Kamini Carlos, who has bounced back out of something we could call hibernation, and is working hard because he hopes that he's going to be part of the World Cup. And I'll be surprised if they don't include him, because if only based on their friendship, because remember that the famous 1984, Kamini won 9, Samuel Eto'o 8, Jeremy Jitab, and 4, Rigobert Song Bahana, the famous 1984 that brought the country down its heels during the 2010 World Cup finals in South Africa. I have never forgotten about the friendship, that thing that brought them together. So therefore, if Kamini Carlos, for example, were to feature in this team, it would not be a surprising thing. But I think the competition was much more keener at the goal if they included Fabrice Ondua to come and compare skill with Andre Onana, because it's going to be very, very teasing. At the World Cup finals, it's what you call the world war in the game of football. So just the best that the country can offer should be taken to the World Cup finals, and they therefore have to look for those arguments that can make available the required human resources that they're taking to the World Cup in terms of players in the den.
You are alluding to some friendship there that you are presuming that some of us are aware of. I mean, can you give us some details about that relationship between?
Well, you are so very skillful at always having me chip out things from the Czech's diary, which is still to hit the headlines by the end of this month. Well, I try to explain it in the book during the 2010 World Cup finals in South Africa. You know, at the time, there was that appellation, that foursome we call 1984, 1984. One in this sense was the goalkeeper Kamini Carlos at the time, and the center forward was Samuel Eto Fils, sporting shirt number 9. Then there was also the strongman at the midfield, defensive midfielder Jeremy Jitab, who was putting sporting number 8 at the time, and of course Rigobert somebody at the rear with shirt number 4. You know, at the time, during the World Cup finals in South Africa, there was a lot of buffoonery in camp, and Cameroon ended up registering the worst ever performance they had ever had in their World Cup history when they went to South Africa, at a time where everybody thought that the World Cup was finally going to find its place on the African soil, with Cameroon being the first African side to win the World Cup. But you see, at some point in the course of the competition, the foursome decided that you always field us as an integrated unit. You don't come in to deplete that foursome as it was. So that caused a lot of disturbance in camp. And of course, it was based on a friendship and the understanding they claim to have nurtured amongst the 4 of them, that they thought that putting the 4 of them together in a game of football was always going to provide the magical wonder Cameroon needed in the competition in South Africa. But the thing rather backfired, and they virtually held the team hostage. And of course, what happened. And it is something like a souvenir that Camerooners would not want to always remind themselves of, especially given the fact that the country's football image and prestige was brought down to the abyss of emptiness.
That is a great nugget from a Czech's diary, and like if you have been following us, you know that is it September 30th? You have to
30th September.
Do we have any copies ready, preview that you can, if people want to start buying copies, what do they need to do?
The first copy we bought on the 29th of September. I don't want to release any of the copies before then. They'll be done on the 29th of November. We're going to do the launch in Yaoundé and then proceed to Douala. Or maybe we'll go to Douala and then come back to Yaoundé. But those 2 days, 29 and 30, are going to be the days when the book hits the stands. And of course, you see behind me that I was trying to cue a tape of what happened in 1985, and we'll have time to come to wait. I know you always want us to get to the heart of the Czech's diary towards the end of the program.
Yeah,
but we'll come back. I think it's going to have something like a pleasant surprise for our viewers out there.
This is what makes this show exceptional, because you are getting the veteran sports journalist sharing from his diary. It's one of a kind. I mean, I don't remember having a diary myself, maybe because I'm a journalist, but I think it is what makes it exciting and what makes it great. Let's maybe, I mean, stay with Cameroon. And there was a piece that was written 2 weeks ago by your friend, and I don't know, we should try to get him on set, Jean Lambert now, and that was with respect to whether it was going to survive the, you know, they call it the witchcraft that is happening at FECAFOOT. I mean, there are too many, I think, too many little conflicts or too many things that is going on. We already talked about the decision by the arbitration committee in Switzerland that gave him, again, the mandate, and that's how they were able to hold the ordinary session of FECAFOOT. I think that was in Kribi towards the end of last month. And during that period, we also talked about that decision. There are some members who decided to stay away, that they didn't want to show up because there was a president who was not legitimate. But it seems as if the crisis at FECAFOOT, in spite of everything happening, Eto keeps moving on. How is that? Again, there's something about this FECAFOOT. I listened to Rimingono yesterday or 2 days ago, and he was making an analysis that Cameroon has a record at the arbitration council for putting on news, and somehow they keep. I mean, it's a pity. We have talked about this, but for the sake of the viewers, if you are just watching, what is at stake, and how is he able to get through this?
Now, what is happening at FECAFOOT is that right now there are some who think that the FECAFOOT saga has come to an end. I don't think so, because the man who kept on calling the shots from center stage, Abdurrahman Amadou Baba, has taken an appeal at the Federal Court of Switzerland. And that court, if it rules in favor of Abdurrahman Baba, then we'll go back to square one. So once an appeal has been taken, you don't say that the thing is all over. It is not over. Actually, what Eto.o Fils did was that he was able to summon a sizable chunk of 44 delegates out of the 73, I think, of the General Assembly of 2009, and made them dance according to the music he was playing. So they gave him the clean bill of health, and he went ahead now, and they wrote to the Court of Arbitration of Sports in Switzerland, saying that they are throwing their weight behind Eto.o Fils and that he was a legitimate president. But Abdurrahman Baba and 16 others say that it is not true, because according to them, FECAFOOT is refusing to respect its own rules and regulations. So that's what they're saying. That's the bone of contention. So Abdurrahman Baba is saying that until FECAFOOT will respect their own rules and regulations and apply them as written down in text, he will not give in the fight. He's not going to throw in the towel. Now, what is going to happen is that in the Swiss Federal Court, what might happen there is, in fact, what the court is going to do is to find out whether the Court of Arbitration of Sports that has handed over victory to Eto apply the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game have not been applied, then you ask that that thing should be taken over, and this time with a different judge, because just one judge who takes that decision. And now they have been crying foul that that judge seems to have been corrupt. I don't know exactly what makes them say so. Well, it's just because of the fact that they think that he has not respected the rules of the games. They could be laying a claim to that, or they could be going around and laying square X. But I think that as long as that case file has gone back to the Swiss Federal Court, we just have to hold our breath and see exactly what happens. But I want to tell you something, Lambert. Before I got into journalism, sports journalism, FECAFOOT was already sick. I've come there and covered their events for 32 years and left the place, and they're still sick. So now the question is, when will they obtain the rightful medication that can take care of viral infection of FECAFOOT? That is what everybody is looking forward to. But for now, once the decision has been taken, as CAS has taken a decision, it is for Eto.o Fils to keep on. He keeps on while having one ear there at the Federal Court of Switzerland, where Abdurrahman Baba is posting and chest pounding and saying that he expects that they're going to overturn the decision that was taken by CAS.
What is the bone of contention?
Abdurrahman Baba, they say this. Well, the rules of FECAFOOT say this. They say that when the president is no longer in office, the next person who comes in to take the place of the president is the first vice president. Now, Iya Mohammed was incarcerated at the maximum security prison, so he was unavailable to perform his duties as the president of FECAFOOT. Now, what they would have expected to happen is that they should have brought in the first vice president of FECAFOOT, who was John beginning there. But you have to be careful about certain things. There is some conspiracy theory that some people are trying to finger around the place. They're claiming that because John beginning there was an Anglophone, that is why he didn't come in as the president of FECAFOOT. That's not true. There is a clause to that says that in as much as you are the vice president, should be able to rally 2/3 of the executive members for it to become valid. He was unable to rally the 2/3 of executive members. So that is how they started moving about looking for the next president of FECAFOOT following on orthodox means. So each man who comes in came in with his own new ideas, a new way of looking at the rules and regulations of the federation, and then it kept on from normalization committee to normalization committee and so on and so forth. So finally where we are now today. Now, so we got to the elections of Samuel Eto.o Fils in December of 2021. Abdurrahman Baba was with Said Lambom Show championing the cause that election was not a valid election because they have been challenging the position of Lambom Show as the rightful president of FECAFOOT. So when those elections were going to hold, Eto.o Fils was one of those who said that whatever came out of those elections were not going to be legitimate. So he ended up becoming the president of FECAFOOT. What does he do with what he had already submitted? So that was the thing. So that is how Abdurrahman turned back and said, no, but let's go back and look at the rules and regulations of the federation, which says that the 2009 General Assembly of FECAFOOT was the one that was supposed to have chosen the next president of FECAFOOT, and not what came up much later, not what came up in 2018 with some new texts that have been panel beating to suit them who were in power at the time. So that is the state of affairs as it is. So therefore, if we go by those submissions by Abdurrahman Baba, then the tendency is for you to say that just hold your breath and wait for the Federal Court of Switzerland to pass its own verdict on the matter, and then we'll know where we'll go to from there.
But what is absolutely clear there is that court we are not going to have this matter come up before the World Cup, because the World Cup is already, I mean, we say that we have already started enjoying the World Cup even before we get to Qatar. And I am surprised you are not mentioning the recent happenings with Eto's case in Spain. I think.
There is a connectivity problem coming from your end there, because I can hardly get what you're saying. I don't know. You must be getting me, all right?
I'm getting you. Can you hear me?
I just got what you said now, but I don't know whether that will continue. But you can go and let me see where I can pick up something of what you're saying.
Okay, I was referencing the fact that Eto had a problem in Spain.
Wow, there is a connectivity issue. However, okay, I can get you now.
So I was talking about Eto's problem in Spain that is also causing part of the problem.
Well, I wouldn't be able to get you, but I think since I can get myself, I hear myself from this end, but I can't get you from that end. What we may just have to do is that maybe while waiting for the lines to start behaving themselves like civilized lines, I would think they should be. Maybe we should go to the text diary and look at what is happening there. We'll go to the text diary and look at what is happening there. I was going to take you. Let me take you. I will have to take my phone and take you right there to see exactly what is happening on the text diary. The Spanish club Atlético Osasuna attacker never gave in to undue pressure to let go any opportunity to encamp. He had come at Portuguese trainer, and it would seem the player whose birthplace and date are respectively Baptism and January 20th, 1982, found the e-lock exercise for him to the satisfaction of millions of fans the world over. The time had come when treating his appearance in the starting lineup with caution bordering on contempt was of the past. Day 6 of the 2006 World Cup qualifiers African zone at the Amadou Stadium in Yaoundé. And for a full house, the Bushan Sudan came very close, making history and pinning Cameroon down. Into injury time, Ashid Webo provided the redemption goal with a close range downer. At full time, Cameroon was now certain that Ashim Webo would be a valuable asset for the Cameroon attack line. Day 7 in Cotonou, and Ashim Webo, feeling the weight of the country's expectations, would score the second goal in Cameroon's 4-1 defeat of Benin. With 2 goals to his credit in the qualifiers, the players unknowingly had become one to watch in the Lions attack line, as with his every swerve and move, emotion would ooze from the stands like juice from a citrus fruit. Day 8 in Yaoundé, scorer Ashim Webo arrived late in camp for the match with Libya, and with determination having secured a dual option up front with him and Eto.o Fils, he was fielded with a particular mission that would achieve in a blistering header to give Cameroon the 1-0 win of Libya. Ashid Webo had become the nation's football hero. Do you think that Cameroon attack line has the wherewithal to demolish them on Sunday to score the goals?
We have chance to make goal now because your defense is very good. Get very good player like Touré, like the model. The Cameroon player like Ito, Douala can make can make defense because they're very good players, and we need the victory because the people need it.
Every time you come onto the pitch, you have scored a goal. Are we seeing scored a goal Sunday?
No, I don't know. I think it's not important that we won't make a goal. No, every player can make the goal because it's very important to make the goal because we need the victory.
Once, and in a very long while, after Roger Albert Miller, Jean-Claude Benet, François Mabir, a player in the colours of the Lions scored 3 goals in one game of the sport. And his name, Pierre Ashim Webo.
Why are we still hoping? I wish that guy was more than anything about info.
Yeah.
Who is hoping
Lambert. That was way back in 2005. So it was 17 years ago. So Cameroon had to play. Cameroon was eyeing a qualification for the World Cup finals in Germany. So what happened is the Lions went and trained in France, and they came back. When they alighted at the Simale International Airport, there was an ecumenical service for the players to be prayed for them to travel to Abidjan. We arrived in Abidjan, and Cameroon had to win that match. What they call the Battle for Abidjan. Cameroon had to win that match to make hopes for a possible qualification once more alive. And what happened was, when the match started, Cameroon scored the first goal through Ashim Webo. Drogba equalized. Cameroon later scored again through Ashim Webo. Drogba equalized. And then we came to the ultimate minute of the match. And I started a countdown. I told Eunice Pascal that we're about 2 minutes to the end of that match. And there was a free kick about 28 meters away. And who came to that ball? It was Jeremy Sorenjitafoto. He took the shot, the ball crashed against the woodwork. And as it came back, Ashim Webo was on time and then headed the ball and scored. And Cameroon won 3 goals to 2. I remember I started a historic countdown, what Professor Babala Mutia would call the historic countdown. I said, in this FECAFOOT, we are 30 seconds to full time, 25 seconds to full time, 20 seconds went up to 9, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And I said 0, the match ended. So we flew back into the country. We had prayed for these players at the stadium, at the airport in Simalen in a communal service. So we came back to Yaoundé and the countdown started for the return match with Egypt. We had to play against Egypt and Ivory Coast had to go and play against Sudan. So the week leading up to that match was a very crowded week. Everybody who mattered in football in this country came out of the hiding places and went and gave the Lions the required support. Everybody you can think about. Even sportsmen like Joseph Besala came out to support the Lions. Now, shortly after the match in Abidjan, I had this thing, I don't know what they call the gift. In a crucial match, I always had signs in my sleep the night before to tell me what would happen the next day. In Abidjan, I had a dream that told me that Cameroon was going to win the next day. And I told those who could listen to me. But now, when we came back to Yaoundé, preparing for the match against Egypt, the Minister for Sports at the time, Philippe Barigamboa, had a mass of Thanksgiving in his home. And I attended that mass. But when I got to that mass, I told the priest who had come to say the mass that, contrary to what I had felt before the match in Abidjan, I had a strong feeling that Cameroon was not going to win against Egypt. That's what I told him. He said he would try to call the minister's attention to it. I said, yeah, I don't know. I just feel I want Cameroon to qualify, but I have the impression that Cameroon will not qualify for that match. Now, 2 days to that match, the minister who had told us that he was going to avoid the kind of confidence overdose that the Ivorians had when we went for the first leg match, in which almost everybody went to the field on that day in Abidjan in the orange colors of the elephants of football. The entire field was orange. So he said we will not indulge in that kind of thing. But during that meeting, he said everybody should appear in green, the Lions' magical color green. So where I stood with the pressmen, I unconsciously shook my head. When I shook my head, minister stopped the meeting and said, Monsieur Fon Echekiye, pourquoi tu secoues la tête? I didn't respond. I was doing that because I saw the minister had said that we will not do that, but he came to the meeting and was saying we do that. Lambert, on the eve of that crucial match, the entire nation forgot that we had accompanied the team to Abidjan in an ecumenical service. Reports came to us that evening on the eve of the match, they were slaughtering cows and so on and so on and giving to the ancestors of the Pandena where the match was going to play the next day. So when I heard it, I just said, well, I now understand why my dream said that Cameroon would not qualify. And that night when I slept, I was living at Balade at the time. When I slept that night, I saw a dream in which the minister left the stadium 5 minutes to the end of the match and driving home sad. So I came and told Linus FECAFOOT, I said, you are not going to Germany tomorrow after the match. So when the match started, Rudolph Douala scored a goal for Cameroon. Cameroon was leading 1-0. And towards the dying minutes of that match, the Egyptians equalized. Now Cameroon needed to win that match to be sure that they were going to go to Germany for the World Cup. So what happened is that in the very, very last seconds of the match, there was a penalty kick that was awarded to Cameroon. Now, if you look at the tape, I can't start doing all of that right now, but subsequently we'll be able to have all of that. What you saw when that penalty was awarded to Cameroon, if you look at the tape very well, Eto.o Fils did not go to get the ball. He instead went and was talking to the Egyptian goalkeeper. The television camera doesn't lie. Whatever thing you discuss with the Egyptian goalkeeper, I can't tell you up to this day. But that was what was happening. We could see it on the television cameras. And Wome went and took the ball. And I told the late Miami David that the dream I had last night showed that Cameroon will not qualify. For Cameroon to qualify, this penalty has to be transformed. Now, with the time remaining, if they took the penalty and scored, Cameroon would have had to, the Egyptian would have had to score to equalize so that Cameroon doesn't qualify for the World Cup. That's what I saw in my dream. So I told him that as it stands, but with the time, just the few seconds will have to go, that penalty will not be transformed. And effectively, when the roommate came forward and took the shot, they crashed against the woodwork and the ball went out. At that point in time, there was John Abonga Tanto, who was running the committees of that match with Jean Lambert. Abonga Tanto said, maybe we're supposed to try to call Sudan to find out what has happened between Sudan and the Ivory Coast that way. Gideon Tazo, who was on the touchline, just cut in very sweet and said, no, it's all gone, Mr. Bongo, because Cote d'Ivoire defeated Sudan 3-0. So that night there was general mourning in Yaoundé. It was terrible. In fact, the fans who had been praying, hoping that the Lions would qualify for the World Cup, rather targeted the players. So the players had to be kept in the change room for ending hours for fans to leave the streets of Yaoundé so that they could go back to the hotel. It was such a sad experience. So that day, the match was played on a Saturday. So in a book, A Czech's Diary, more than 1/3 of a century, covering sports facts and figures, that chapter is entitled On Holy Saturday. You know, you're a Catholic Christian, you know, Holy Saturday is a day when we talk about the harrowing of hell by Jesus Christ. So that Saturday ended up being an unholy one, and that was how Cameroon's dream for the World Cup ended that year.
If you paid all school fees and you don't have money, you have yourself to blame if you are not able to pick up a copy of A Czech's Diary at the end of this month. When Gong said,
so that was what
to hear about A Czech's Diary, would this be available online? I can tell you the answer is no, but I'm sure we're going to be available online. But again, this is why I love this program, because it is you really live. I mean, we watched that and we didn't know what was happening all along, and I didn't even pay attention to. I'm sure someday we're going to get back to that. But it's amazing how time flies and we are able to relive these moments. It seems as if it always has to come down to the wire, isn't it? Because again, it's the same thing that happened with the last qualification, because it came down to what second. And so Cameroon seems to have a medal for qualifying at the nick of time. But what is interesting is the fact of something that we have never touched on, which you reference here, the role of the Marabout, because seemingly everything, and I say this because you have experience with moving along with the national team. It's always been rumored that there's always a magician who travels with the team. Is that true?
In 2010 in South Africa, news filtered in our hotel that a plane full of marabouts had alighted at the airport in Johannesburg to help Cameroon qualify to play and maybe win the cup. I nosed around to see if I could find any of them. I didn't. But what I remember absolutely was that after the match, or after Cameroon's elimination in South Africa, when we're doing the balance sheet of the performance, I met the late president of Tonnerre Yaoundé, Mr. Isumbayinga, who told me that he said it on the microphone. He said, we cannot serve two masters at the same time. You cannot be praying for the team to come and play and succeed in the World Cup, and then while the competition is on, you bring in marabouts. He said that you cannot serve two masters at the same time. So he said that on the. I remember when I came back here, that thing made headlines here. Now he was one of the FECAFOOT representatives who traveled to South Africa for the World Cup, and he came out and said that kind of a thing. If he said that kind of thing, who else would challenge it? So effectively, there would have been marabouts who were taken over to South Africa. But if you want to know from me, marabouts and football, well, you know what? If those things do play and are effective in football, then what we may just have to do is that don't waste billions of francs trying to organize camps and clinics for the national team. Just go to one of the most powerful villages in this country where those marabouts live and just hire them to come and maybe come and spot the attires and go and play and win. Those things, that thing is just a figment of the imagination. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't work. It doesn't. That is crap. It doesn't work.
Okay, so this weekend, I'm not sure you have. I mean, you are on the ground, so it should be less. That's a good segue to PW Bamenda today. They're supposed to be playing in is it Bafoussam? And that was the CAF. Is it the Confederations Cup? Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
So this
Now
weekend, CAF kicked up its Confederation Cup competitions, and so
yeah,
Peter Bamenda is representing Cameroon. So, any word?
You know you're a Bamenda man, and I don't have good news for you. PW Bamenda playing the first leg match in Cameroon and at the Pekong Stadium played a 1-1 draw with a team from Madagascar. They played a 1-1 draw. So what could likely happen in the return match can be anyone's guess. But you know the game of football sometimes can be very unpredictable. But the scores of that match was 1 goal each way, the Madagascar team and the PW Bamenda. In fact, this opened the scores and the Malagasy side equalized. Cotosport of Garoua, they trounced the opponents from Lesotho, I think. The opponents from Lesotho by 3 goals to nothing, playing in South Africa because the Lesotho has issues with their playing ground. So the match was played in South Africa. Cotosport won by 3 goals to nothing. And as this program began, the Women's African Champions League, which is up to its first edition, is on. And our FC of Yaoundé of Cameroon is playing against a team from that team is from Equatorial Guinea. The match is being played in Equatorial Guinea. It's playing against TP Mazembe, the female team of the all-powerful TP Mazembe team of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the match is being played in Equatorial Guinea, and we don't have the scores as yet because that is being played at a time when this program was about to begin.
So let's stay with PW Bamenda because I think it's interesting that PW qualified for this, but without really doing enough research, I saw they have been trying to revamp the team because they seem to have recruited some players from outside. I mean, on the official list, but it seems as if that's not enough.
Lambert, connectivity issue again. So I can't. You told me that after we talk about the Czech's diary, we're going to talk about the matches that have been played on the African continent and possibly talk about the World Cup, which you did already. Right now, I can't quite get what you're asking from your own end as a question. I can't quite get it. But maybe I would have loved to even ask you a question from this end. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Can't quite get you, but what I'm really interested in knowing right now is how did the Veterans Tournament go last weekend? I hear Jomo Kevin ran commentaries there.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Fon, can you hear me?
Lambert, are you on? Lambert, are you on?
Can you hear me? I am on. Can you hear me?
I can't quite get you right now. I see you're frozen there on the air. I don't quite get you, but I can imagine maybe I don't know what viewers out there are getting you, but I am not getting you from where I'm sitting right now. Then maybe if they can get you, they can go ahead to tell us exactly what happened in the Veterans Tournament and what was the added touch given to it by Jomo Kevin.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
Are you on?
I can hear you. I don't know why you can't hear me. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello, Fon. Again, we went back to our connectivity issues. I don't know what the problem is. If you can hear me, can you give a sign? Can you hear me? indicate if you can hear me. I see a couple of people in the audience. Just if you can hear me, just say yes, no. Can you hear me now, Fon?
I can hear you right now.
Okay, so I was wondering because you kept saying the connectivity issues. So, I mean, the National Veterans Tournament will leave. I think we'll have to come back to that because I'm compiling a report. It was quite interesting. There were 32 teams that came from across the United States and Canada. Remember when we had the National Veterans Tournament president here and the president of the organizing committee, one of the issues that has marred the competition is the age limit. So because it's a veterans tournament and teams are coming, they wanted people to be at minimum 36 years old to be able to play. And the president, it has been a contentious issue for the tournament. And I can report that the president kept to his word, because one of the most popular teams, at least the one that won the competition last year, Spartans from Maryland, they were disqualified because they brought in a player who was younger and they got disqualified. And it was interesting. I don't have the details. That's why I'm still putting that report together. But it was interesting that a couple of teams got disqualified on the basis of not respecting the age limit that the competition had imposed. And which is kind of, I don't know why they call it the veterans tournament and want to field players who are younger than what veterans are supposed to be. And there were a couple of other hiccups, but that had nothing to do with the game itself. In the end, the team that carried the day was the veterans from Gwinnett. Gwinnett is in Atlanta. They're the ones hosting the competition next year. They pride themselves as being 3 times winners of that competition. In all, they defeated the veterans from Minnesota, 1-0. And yes, can you?
Yeah, we're still having that issue. But I think you can hear my question. When you say the National Veterans Tournament, I imagine that the players who take part in the tournament are supposed to be all of them based in the United States. That's correct?
Correct.
Yeah, but I saw on social media, I saw some 2 players, Mokake Marcus and Eno Eyontakan. How would they find themselves?
Fon, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Fon? We thought we had dealt with this problem of connectivity, but again, we are back to it. And it seems it's both from my side and Fon's side. I don't know. Good, yeah, it comes. Can you hear me now?
Lambert?
Yes, can you hear me?
We still have the same issue. They still have the connectivity issue. It's not working well. I don't know exactly how we're going to beat out this one. Last week we tried to work out something which worked very well. Today the gods of the connectivity have said that they will strike today. Maybe we'll try to fix that one again before next week and have a lasting solution to this whole thing, so that we don't have to be cutting in every now and then to question why it's not moving and smoothly and stuff like that.
Can you hear me now?
But I think that beginning this week, I'm going to start giving some insights on the Checks Diary on my Facebook page, and even some of my Twitter accounts will carry some insights on the Checks Diary as from this week, so that we'll try to do a kind of countdown to the events that will be coming up in some time. There's a friend of yours here who has asked me not to pronounce their name on the program, Who was asking me whether I can take the book and bring them all the way to the United States of America. I told him that was never part of my plan. But if Lambert thinks that the Lambert show, the Lambom Show can take the book to the United States, that would be good and fine. But for now, there was no such plan to take the book to any place outside the national territory. But the book will only be launched in Yaoundé and in Douala. Are you on?
Can you hear me?
I'm getting you very well. 10 on 10.
Yes. Thank you very much. Again, I don't know. We have to work out this because I don't think it's proper for us to be breaking up now and again. But we'll work on it. We'll continue to work on it. There's no way the Czech diary will not be launched in the United States. That's impossible. You can do the one in London. We'll work on getting the one in the United States. So, of course, I hope he's the person I'm thinking about, but he should be able to bring some copies over. But again, I think we'll talk about the national veterans next week. We'll give maybe a little segment to it. But the remainder of the time that we have, is there any other thing from a Czech diary apart from the one that we had today? Any bonus?
Any bonus? What do I say? There are certain things I would want to tell you. First of all, that book is dedicated to the memory of all the victims, living and dead, of the war that is taking place right now in English-speaking regions of Cameroon. That's the first thing. The second thing to it is that the preface of the book, or the foreword, has been written by Eric Chinje. So that tells you the kind of thing we'll try to do. In fact, the book is going to be 376 written pages plus 24 pages of colored pictures. So some of the key moments I went through when I was a sports reporter at CRTV. I begin it from where it all begins. When my father and mother brought me to this earth, on a certain something, I was told it was something like 11 a.m. on a certain Tuesday, way back in 1964. So from there, that is how I start telling my story, and how, of course, the famous report by Zakarinko and the home of a certain Mr. Camilos in Hausa quarters, where I used to go and read. I used to go and flip through the pages of the newspaper. I don't know what it's possible for me to do right now, but I can't go down and start reading parts of the book. And then many people call me Fon Echekiye. Fon Echekiye. It is explained in the book how it came by name Fon Echekiye. I had come all the way from Bishop Logan College to Cas Bambili, where I met a certain classmate of mine called Yuba Francis Yakam. That was the guy in whose house I listened to that audio report that would forever define my destiny in a particular way. And on holidays, we would go to cinema halls, and I was an addict of these Chinese films and so on. So when on one such occasion, I came back to Bambili, I was talking to him about somebody they call, the film was Born Invincible. Born Invincible. Invincible Born. Born Invincible. And so he will be talking to me about his own books too, his own experiences in the cinema halls. Now, that coincided with when a certain Mr. Sama was teaching us complex numbers in the science of mathematics at high school. And now, a classmate of mine told me that he had observed me very closely and look at the way I approach arguments and debates. And that is stamping me as a complex born. Somebody was born complex, a complex born. You got it. Now, because we're doing science, we are taking classes, lectures in mathematics in high school, and during that period was when we were dealing with complex numbers, which are denoted by I, small I. So instead of now calling me complex born, or rather being born complex, they started calling me I was a complex born, and then he took away the name of complex and then put I. So that's how it became I born. So I explained all of that in the book to say exactly how I got to do that. And then subsequently, I would also listen to the report by Zakarenko, and that started me making and so on and so forth. So all of those things I explain in the book. In fact, the book, I take it chapter by chapter. The first chapter is titled 1986. 1986, the birth of a calling. Start describing how the thing begins from there. You take it year by year, 1986, 1987, 1988, 1990, and so on and so forth. 1993, for example, is Requiem for KK11 of Zambia, because that was the year that plane crash and the entire the entire national team was swept off the face of the earth. And I explained how I got to learn of news that morning. I was in the house in my one room in the municipality in Obile, and during the 11 a.m. newscast at CRTV at the time, Alfred Sone Metuge began the news by saying, "Good morning. Here is a news read by Alfred Sone Metuge. The entire squad and officials of the KK11 of Zambia have perished in a disaster off the Gabonese coast." So I left my room. At the time, we didn't have mobile phones. So I left my room and ran up to the road junction where you call Carrefour Billy. When I got there was a certain bar we used to go and sit and have a relaxed over bodies of beer. And a certain guy who owned the bar called Chinda had rallied a crowd of people, and they were saying, so I rather rushed into the telephone booth and called Mike Enze, my chief of service at the time, to find out from him if he had heard about that and what he was trying to do. So he said they got the news, and what he was trying to put on the news that night was just the entire team that had perished, with them lined up 3 days before then, because they had gone to play a match in Madagascar, World Cup qualifier. So the way the teams queued up for the playing of the national anthem, just that's what was said to the Cameroon public that night. And the next day now, I came and did the report. And that report happens to be one of the best reports I ever wrote in my life at CRTV. So all of those things come back. All of them come back. For example, there is the chapter 2010, which goes as follows. It goes as how 1984 ruined the people's hopes. You understand now what I mean by 1984?
Right, 1984.
Yes. Something to the year 2008. Divine message to Rigobert Song Bahanak. And what was the divine message? He had served this country for too long on the football pitch, that he did something in the final game against Egypt at the African Nations Cup in Ghana that was very unlike some, where he kneeled the ball instead of clearing it, and the ball fell in the hands of the advancing Egyptian attacker who served Abu Treka, and he scored. And so that move alone, as far as concerned, was a message from God to say that you have come to the end of your service to the nation on the football pitch. He wouldn't want to throw in the towel. He continued, and that is how he went on in 2010, 2 years later on, to go and become a disgrace himself during the World Cup finals in South Africa. So when God speaks to you, listen and try to say, do what God asks you to do. So it was a divine message that he refused to pay heed to, and so on and so forth. That's how the book is, that the story of all that length of time and covering sports is told.
So
I've seen that is Ngong. Mr. Ngong is saying that we need a launch of the book as well in the Queensland. May her soul rest in peace. so we go to America, from there we live and go over to Britain, right?
Correct. So again, I think it's important, but the other thing is, how much is a copy going to cost, so that if people want to start preparing their little, and I think that what we're going to do is next week we'll start building up by putting questions. People who answer the questions will get a copy of the book that will be prepaid. So how much is a copy?
I've not yet talked about that. You know, I had to talk about it with you. So you don't want us to talk about it in the public square. So
okay.
We'll talk about
so next week we'll announce how much that's going to cost, and then we'll start giving out prizes here for people who are able to answer questions directly related to the trajectory of veteran sports journalist Fon Echekiye.
Yes.
So
good.
ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we have come to the end of this, and we were not able. Connectivity is continuing to be a problem, but we are getting more professional, especially as we're getting close to the World Cup. Any last words?
Well, the last word is that the program is on again next week, and you inform me 24 hours of the program.
So thank you very much. Again, if you are new to this channel, please subscribe. The Lambom Show. Go to YouTube and subscribe. And like Fon said, this week he'll start rolling out on his YouTube, on his Facebook and Twitter handle snippets of Fon Echekiye or the Czech's Diary. So look out for that. And next week we'll have a special edition, a special segment dedicated to how to get a copy and how to win a prize on the Lambom Show as a means of promoting that. Until then, thank you. And let the supporters of PW Bamenda do something and call on the gods of Abakwalan to help us. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, it's a pleasure.